Choosing the perfect camera for your live stream can definitely feel overwhelming. But regardless of which manufacturer or which model you choose, there are 5 features you want to make sure that your camera has. And today, I honestly can't believe that there are Sony grade cameras out there to Fuji choose from. Olympus. And this isn't just about finding a camera that's going to work with your live stream, because there are so many different ones. You can use a small point and shoot camera, you can use your phone, you can use something like a GoPro. There are so many cameras that work great for live streaming beyond just the built-in webcam of your computer, which is usually not the best camera in the world. This is more about finding a camera that's gonna let you level up the overall quality of your live stream. And it doesn't really matter if you're using something like the A10 Mini or the Elgato Camlink or some other type of capture card. These 5 things are what I think you need to make sure your camera has no matter what. And this isn't going to be a specific recommendation. I want to give you some features. Down in the description, I will put a few of my recommendations for, low level, mid level, and high end cameras that you might want to choose from, but there are so many different ones out there. If you are just tired of searching and you just want an answer, I personally, for my videos, my streams, my classes, everything, I use the Canon EOS R. That shouldn't be a surprise if you've been here for a while. I think for the price, the feature set, the reliability, nothing really beats it. The EOS R also has every feature that I'm going to talk about today. So that's my camera of choice, but that's definitely not the only option out there. So I don't want to just steer you towards the thing that works for me. I want to give you some guidelines so you can go out and find something that works for you. So no matter which camera you choose, here are the 5 things you want to make sure it can do. The first one, very important, is a clean HDMI out signal. Not every camera has this feature. It sounds very basic, but you kind of need to go into maybe the mid-level or the lower high end of camera before you start finding models that have the option to send a clean HDMI out signal. Now sometimes you do want that info on screen. For example, right here, just out of frame, I have a monitor that's showing me this recording that I'm using right now, and it has all of that camera info. So I can see my shutter speed, I can see my audio levels, I can see my record time, I can make sure things are in focus. And a camera with clean HDMI out like the EOS R will let you go into the menu and you can actually then select what you want to be sent on your HDMI output. And now if I want to use this camera to film anything, it's not going to have anything on screen. It's going to be a clean output signal. Now, while every camera doesn't have clean HDMI out, there are some ways you can kind of fake it. So for example, if I take my 6D Mark II, now this is a great camera, but I can't get all of this info off of the display when I'm recording with it. I can, however, press the info button on the back of the camera and take off pretty much all of that info. And so it's almost clean HDMI out, but what you'll notice is there's still the focus box and the frame there. I can't get rid of that. The only way to get rid of that is to flip the camera into manual focus. And now it looks like I have clean HDMI out, but it's in manual focus. So what that really means, especially if I'm using a prime lens, like this is a 35mm 2.0 lens, if the camera moves just a little bit, or I move further or closer to the camera, wait, that was backwards. If I move closer or further away from the camera, I'm going to go in and out of focus. Because once I have my subject focused in the frame, it will look great. And it looks like a clean HDMI output, but if my subject is talking and moves a little bit away from the camera, it's gonna go out of focus, moves closer to the camera, it's gonna go out of focus. And when you're doing a live stream, there's a lot to keep track of. Even if you're just using one camera, because you're paying attention to whatever it is that you're trying to communicate. Maybe you even have another person there that you're trying to talk to and have a conversation with. You're trying to pay attention to the stream itself, make sure everything's up and running, and you're trying to pay attention to, the live chat and interact with your audience. And on top of that, you don't want to then also have to be reaching around, fixing focus, because that's really just not going to help your stream at all. It'll make you want to scream on stream. Depending on your needs, this might not be a deal breaker. For example, with the 6D Mark II, what I often use it for is I keep it at f4 with a really wide focal length. So like right now it's at 16mm with f4. And once it's focused, it's gonna be a little tougher for me to go out of focus. And I will usually use this camera during a stream as like a second wide shot, sometimes an overhead shot, where there's not a lot of movement. Once the focus is set, it's pretty unlikely that anything's gonna go out of focus. And then I can actually use this as a live streaming camera, even though it's in manual focus. And that puts some limits on your stream because it basically forces you to use a wide angle lens with a wide depth of field, and that might not be the look that you're going for. And that actually brings me into feature number 2 that you want to make sure your live streaming camera has, and that is the ability to swap out lenses. Whether it's a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, I think that you absolutely want to go with a camera that is an interchangeable lens camera. And the reason for that is just to give you those creative options. Sure, if you want the really wide angle shot, you can get it. But if you want to switch to a prime lens like I'm using right now, you can get that. If you want to zoom in, you can get that. It doesn't limit you in any way, and it opens up a lot of possibility. For example, the lens I'm using to film this video, the Sigma 24mm 1.4, opened all the way to f1.4. That's a look that you can't get with a zoom lens. You can't get on small point and shoot cameras. You need a fast prime lens to get that look. And the only way that you can use a lens like that with your camera is to make sure your camera allows you to swap out lenses. And you also never know how things are gonna evolve over time, so you might start your stream loving a super wide angle, but then as time goes on, maybe you're gonna switch and you're gonna want a closer angle, or you're gonna wanna have more than one camera, like using the A10 Mini, for example. And that's why being able to swap out your lenses is so important, because it just builds that versatility right into your workflow. Now, the third thing that I think you need to have on a live streaming camera that I don't think should be any surprise at this point is great autofocus. For the most part, I'm guessing if you're like me, when you're doing a stream or an online anything that involves your camera, you're probably a one-person crew. And if there's somebody else with you, they're probably on camera also, which just means you're not able to pull focus behind the camera. So you need a camera that you can count on. You don't want it to then suddenly lock on the background and then you're out of focus for 20 minutes. You want to make sure that when you hit record, it's going to lock onto you, keep you in focus. Even if you're using a lens like I'm using right now, the EOS R will lock onto my eye, and then even though it's at f1.4, as I move further and closer to the camera, it's going to keep me in focus. So much so that it's actually sort of tough sometimes. If I want to hold something up, I have to like really cover my face before the camera will stop focusing on me. And then as soon as my face comes back, it jumps right into my eye. So that's what you want in a camera, something with great autofocus. And the fourth thing that you're gonna want in your live streaming camera is either great battery life or the ability to connect it to AC power, because fortunately, streaming usually doesn't take as much power from your camera as actually recording does, because the camera is basically just on and standby. Usually you're not recording while you're streaming, the camera's just on. But it does still take power. So you wanna make sure your camera's not gonna turn off or run out of power in the middle of your stream. Now, some cameras do come with the ability to just plug into the wall and be powered that way, which is obviously pretty ideal. I know that Canon does make a wall adapter for the EOS R and for some of their cameras. Sometimes it looks like a dummy battery that goes in your battery compartment, but it has a cable that comes out and that connects to a wall adapter. For me though, the Canon one is just too expensive. I think it's something like $160, and it's probably worth it, but I just don't want to spend $160 on a power adapter. Fortunately, the EOS R has really good battery life. I can easily get 3 to 4 hours, if not more, from a single battery for streaming. I'm never gonna stream for 3 to 4 hours, so that's more than enough. Even when I'm teaching my classes online throughout the week, I can usually almost get through the whole day with one battery, but I usually switch out in the middle just to be safe so I don't have to worry about it. I do have a lot of batteries. I have like 5 batteries for this camera, so there's always charged. I can just switch them out really easily, and I've never had an issue with battery life or power using the EOS R. So whatever you're using, make sure that it has great battery life or the ability to just be plugged into the wall and have continuous power, so it's not something you have to worry about at all while you're streaming. And just a side note, if you are streaming and your camera runs out of power, don't panic. Just tell people, hey, it ran out of power, swap out the battery. It'll take a few seconds, and that's about it. It just shows that you're human and things are okay. So don't panic if you do have those kind of issues during your stream, but of course you want to avoid those. And that ties into feature number 5, which is the ability for your camera to stay on for an indefinite period of time, meaning it's not going to auto power off or overheat or anything like that. Now, if you are using a camera that's prone to overheating, fortunately, while you're streaming, since you're not recording, it shouldn't give you any issues. Although if you are going on a really long stream, several hours, you might come into some heating issues depending on your resolution and your frame rate and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, you should be okay. So you shouldn't have your camera shut down for that, which does actually remind me, do you know why the Sony A7III asked the Canon R5 on a date? It's because the Canon was just so hot. And you know why the Canon said yes to the Sony? It's because the A7S III was just so cool. Anyway, fortunately, most cameras do give you the option to adjust your power saving settings and your auto power off settings. For example, in my EOS R right here, I can go into the preferences setting, which is the yellow wrench, and I can go to the second menu, and there's an eco mode, which I've just turned off because I use these cameras for streaming a lot. And then there's also the power saving options. The display turning off doesn't really matter, so you can let your display turn off. You can let your viewfinder turn off, but it's auto power off. By default, the camera comes with like 1 minute. So after 1 minute, it's gonna turn off. For streaming, you just wanna disable that. And that way, this camera will stay on indefinitely as long as there is power running to it. And just like with clean HDMI out, which sounds like such a simple basic feature, not every camera does give you the option to turn off the power saving modes and let it stay on indefinitely. But most of the mid-range and high-end cameras will let you adjust the power settings to suit your needs, and all the ones that I'll put in the list in the description that are just my recommendations will allow you to do that as well. And I can't emphasize enough that I'm not trying to point you towards one specific camera. I'm just trying to equip you with a checklist that's gonna help you get a camera that's gonna suit your needs, no matter what brand or model it might be. And if you are interested in doing more live streaming or online classes or any of that kind of stuff, I have a whole playlist right here. Make room for it. I have a whole playlist right here all about live streaming tips and tricks and cool stuff that I think will be very, very helpful.